Good morning, YouTube. Madam Roy back again. Back to you with a video that's a request from YouTube user chrisstv1979, so as a shout out to you, Chris. He saw my vlog the other day in which I showed this Dell Studio Hybrid 140G desktop computer, and he asked me to do a review on it because he's planning on buying one himself. So Chris, this is the review for you. Let me give you a background on this particular computer. These systems started being produced in late 2008, and I know this because at that time I was working for the Geek Squad at my local Best Buy, and we had just started getting these computers in. And I must say, the first thing I thought to myself when we got this in was, boy, is this computer strange. I really didn't understand what Dell was going for when they first brought this system out. But as time went by, I realized it was actually a very, very smart marketing ploy. Back then, there was a big transition going on. That was when the first smartphones were coming out, the first tablets were coming out, and mainly laptops were getting much stronger. Even a few years before this, laptops were very weak compared to desktops, especially when it came to specs. They usually had a slower processor, less memory, even slower hard drives. But around this time, laptops really started getting to be more powerful. Now, Dell, in their infinite wisdom, thought to themselves, this could be a problem for the desktop market, which, even though they did make laptops, and they still do to this day, desktops are still a big part of their business. So what in effect Dell did is they said to themselves, what can we do to make a laptop-desktop hybrid system? Something that a person that would normally get a laptop for as like a desktop replacement might be able to buy instead of going with a laptop. Because there are a lot of people out there that will buy laptops just because they think they're cool. They may not need them because they don't take them anywhere. Older people, people that stay in their homes a lot, for instance. So this is what Dell came up with. This is what's called the Dell Studio Hybrid, and it's called a hybrid because it actually has a combination of desktop and laptop components. For example, this uses laptop memory and laptop hard drive. It actually uses a 2.5-inch, just a standard laptop SATA hard drive. Right now I have the 500 gigabyte drive. I did wind up putting that in here the other day. It does also use a slot-loading DVD burner, though this one is specifically made for this computer. It is not like one you would see in a laptop, basically because it doesn't have the faceplate on front, and also doesn't have the ability for you to have a button. In other words, the button is actually built into the control panel on the front here. So let's go ahead and look at a few features of this really awesome computer that is definitely going to be is a piece of history now and will continue to be in the future. Starting in front here, you see you got your power button. Now under that is your hard drive activity light, and then under that is your eject button for the DVD drive. Now, unfortunately in Windows 10 that eject button does not work, so you literally have to go into this PC and you have to eject it using the software. Basically, which is you right-click on the optical drive icon and then left-click eject. Coming down here, you see you have a SD card slot. This is, I believe, just an SD. I don't think this reads anything else, but that's primarily what we use nowadays, so that's actually still really prudent. Down here you have two USB 2.0 ports. It's a little bit too old for 3.0, but it does have the 2.0 ports. And then under that you have just a regular headphone jack, and I have tested that, and that is a powered headphone jack. Works really, really well. I've actually been using these slick studio headphones. These are by no means high fidelity headphones. These are like cheap $20 ones. I think I got at Rose's, and it actually sounds really well with when plugged in here. So this is definitely a powered port. So let's go ahead and turn this. Oh, before I turn around, let me tell you, there is a vent here, and one problem that I've noticed with a lot of these is people will forget to clean this. Like when I first got this, these vents right here, there's a vent up here, and one on the bottom were totally clogged with dust. And because of the size of the system, airflow is very important. So you want to make sure that these are as clean as possible, or you literally could cook your system. Turning to the side, you can see that it is encased in this plastic little dome here. This is basically just to protect the computer and make it look a little bit better. You can see the Dell logo on the side. Then there's this little metal stand that it actually just sits on. You don't have to use this stand. You can actually pull it off, and I'll show you guys that in a minute, and you can put it on its side, but I think it actually looks better this way. You can see down here it is rocking an Intel Pentium. It's actually a Pentium dual-core processor, the T4200, and originally had Windows Vista on it, but I have since installed Windows 10. Now, turning around to the back, you can see some very, very interesting ports here, and I'll go through them real quick for you. First of all, let's see this fan. This is just a tiny little cooling fan, and this is pretty much all you have in here, and it's really all you need because the way they designed it, as long as you keep it nice and clean, then cooling in this particular system is really not much of a problem. Going to the right, you can see you have your audio input-output. You even have an SP-diff, or a optical audio out for digital audio, which is, I think, a really nice touch. A FireWire 1394 IEEE port. This is the laptop style one, or the iLink as it's called sometimes. 3 more USB 2.0 ports. You have the power plug, because this particular computer uses a laptop style power brick. There's not enough room inside for an internal power supply. And as you can see, it uses a fairly standard 19.5 volt 3.34 amp power supply. So it's basically a 60 watt laptop style power supply. I don't have the original one, but the one that was included and given to me with this works fine. It's just like one of those generic iLife power supplies. 10100 based Ethernet port, and then you have an HDMI port. That's right, kind of rare to find on a computer from this era, 2008, 2009. HDMI was kind of still in its infancy, and you really don't see them in a lot of computers, but this computer can support up to 1080p, so 1920 by 1080. And this right here is probably the most interesting. This is a dual link DVI port. You can see right here it looks just like your standard DVI port. But what this allows you to do is hook up one of these cables. Basically, this is just a splitter cable. On this end is the regular DVI port. And then here, it allows you to hook up 2 other monitors, in this case VGA and DVI, though I do believe you can also get dual VGA and dual DVI cables that'll work with this as well. So in effect, you can have 2 monitors hooked up at one time with this computer. I'm not sure if you could support 3. Theoretically, you could hook 3 monitors up to it, but I don't think the internal Intel Graphics 945 chipset can support that. I think the most you could do with this is a dual video card setup. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take this apart really quick for you. It's actually fairly easy. The first thing you have to do is pull the base off, which will come off pretty easily. Better with 2 hands, but it is doable with 1. And the first thing you have to do is remove this little screw here, which I will do right now. Once you remove that, you can go ahead and push this outer casing away. Alright, now that I've removed that screw, the case actually just slides out of that plastic housing very easily. We'll go ahead and put that stuff to the side. Now, the next thing you have to do to take this apart is you have to remove this screw here, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now for you. I will tell you that this particular computer does not always go back together easily. There are a lot of things that can get bent and misaligned, and unfortunately that was the case in this computer. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this screw out, and then I'll explain that a little bit more in depth. Alright, now that that screw's out, you should just be able to slide the whole case off like this, slide it back, and just pop it right off. Now, here's where things get a little tricky. This is, right here, is the hard drive and optical drive cage. Basically, this holds both items, and theoretically, you should just be able to pull this little lever up and pull it out. But I found, when I first tried to take this computer apart, that years and years of use and it being stuck in one place, it actually caused the tabs here to get pretty much welded shut. You can see there's 4 tabs. There's the back tab here, the front tab here, and basically the same type of deal on the other side. And unfortunately, to get this apart, I actually had to do some prying, and I did wind up damaging this a little bit. Luckily, it wasn't too severe, and now that these have been pried up a little bit, it is fairly easy to pull off. Now, I have to do this two-handed, so I'm going to have to pause the video, but basically what you do is you just hold this with one hand, with the other hand you just pull up, and this whole thing will just come up and out. Alright, so I have loosened it up, so now basically I can just pull this out, and that reveals the optical drive here, and then underneath here is your hard drive cage. Now this is fairly easy to take the hard drive out. It's 4 screws. It's the 2 screws on this side, 2 screws on that side, and then you basically take your fingers, because what happens is it braces against this little controller card here. What I did is I took my 2 fingers here and then just pushed out like that, and the hard drive just popped out. Pretty easy, really no problems at all. There's the optical drive. Like I said, this looks like your standard laptop optical drive, but it really isn't. This is a slot loading, not a tray loading, and that's what we're talking about, it being a hybrid, because like I said, there are certain components in here that are laptop components, and other components that would be more like a desktop. So looking in here, you can see some of the various components. I'll say right off the bat that this is your processor under here. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure if this is a laptop or a desktop processor. It may actually be a laptop processor. I'm not going to take it apart because it's working fine. The thermal paste is actually held up very well because this does not have any problems. And guess what, guys? It is the Wednesday test of the emergency broadcast system. Woo! Alright, now back to the computer, since we were so rudely interrupted by my NOAA weather radio. Basically, the components in here are very similar to what you would find in your typical laptop or desktop PC. Right here you have 2 SODIMMs. This has 4 gigabytes, so these are 2 gigabyte sticks each of PC2 6400. It is DDR2 memory. Here you have your wireless card. This is, I believe, a wireless G and a MIMO G card. It looks like you can replace it fairly easily, though. I may even try to do that because I think I have a wireless N card that would work in here. But basically, to remove this, all you have to do is take out these 2 screws. You have to remove the antennas. Make sure to note which lead goes where. So basically, the white wire goes here, the black wire goes there. And once you do that, this will just pop up and it'll come out, because this is just like a little card slot here. Let's see what we got over here. I believe this is for an optional Bluetooth card, which this particular one does not have. Now, if you're looking at this and saying, so, Matt, what in the world is this thing back here? Well, this is actually how the hard drive and the optical drive communicate with the motherboard. If you look under here, you can see that little riser card, or riser/controller card, has a little lead right here. And when you push this back in, it actually plunges into there, and that's how you get your connection for the hard drive and the optical drive. I find this design kind of interesting, and it really does work. Basically, the heatsink is behind here. You can see that it's got a little lead up to the heatsink style. It's actually kind of like a radiator style. And then what happens is the heat goes up into here through the little copper pipe, because as we know, copper is extremely conductive. Goes into here where the radiator style heatsink sits, and once the heat's there, it's just a simple matter of this tiny little fan blowing it out and behind the case. And you really wouldn't think, to look at this, that it would be very good at cooling it off, but it is amazing. As a matter of fact, the only part of this that ever really gets hot is this area here with the heatsink and the fan. I've taken this apart after it's been running for a while, and this area in here stays pretty cool, and that's exactly what you want, because the only heat you want in a computer is you want it going out, basically. So I must give Dell kudos on a good designed case and a good designed heatsink, because like I said, rarely am I having any cooling issues with this particular computer. Now, if you look over here, you can see that they do use a laptop-style CMOS battery. In here should be a rechargeable CR2032. Yes, usually these are rechargeable, unlike the ones they use in desktops, which are lithium, basically one-time use batteries. Once they're depleted, you just replace them. But you can see that it has a lead coming over to the front of the motherboard, and you can see it plugs in right there. So this is basically the guts of the computer. And again, I am really impressed with the design of this. Let me see if I can show you guys this going back in. Once again, this is the hard drive optical cage. Now basically what you want to do when you put this in, you want to line up as best you can. It's not as important for the little brackets here, but you want to make sure you line up that card down there. And this is going to be really impossible to do one-handed, so I'm just going to have to do this off camera. But like I said, if you're taking this apart, just make sure you line up this little lead here, and you want to avoid doing this. You see this little ribbon cable here can get in the way, so basically what you want to do is you want to make sure that that is pushed back so you don't cut into that when you're trying to put this back in. Now, one thing I want to note, I leave this screw undone for easy disassembly, but when you're working on yours, you're probably not going to want to do it the way I do it. There is a standoff screw here that actually helps brace this cage in. So once you take it apart, you want to make sure you take that screw out before you actually pull the cage out. I apologize for not telling you that before, but on mine, I just leave it loose because this screw really does not do much of anything. It's not even that... what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't even brace anything really, because when you have this closed, the sheer weight of the top cover here actually keeps everything in place. So this screw really isn't that necessary, but if you want to use it, by all means, do it.